Flowers and Politics, a historical overview. Flowers are not only about beauty, fragrance and harmony. Throughout history, they have been deeply woven into the fabric of social life, culture, and politics. They have been given as gifts, protested because of them, punished for them, and even declared wars. This first part of the script will show how flowers have become a universal language of power, influence and resistance. Flowers in diplomacy. In ancient civilizations, Egypt, China, India, flowers had a sacred meaning. They were not just decorations. Each flower had a meaning, and their use in official ceremonies had a symbolic meaning. In Renaissance Europe, especially in France and England, flower giving became part of diplomatic etiquette. For example, the lily was considered a symbol of monarchical purity, and the rose was a symbol of love, peace, or dynasty. Remember the War of the Red and White Roses in England. Flower language. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the so-called florography emerged, a system according to which each flower had its own meaning. It was an epical breakthrough in the culture of communication. Politicians used flowers to transmit encrypted messages. In the United States, for example, carnations have become a symbol of political campaigns, and daisies have become a symbol of hope for reform. Flowers in protests. One of the most famous moments in the history of political protests is the flower power in the United States. During the Vietnam War, young activists inserted flowers into the barrels of National Guard assault rifles. This image became a global symbol of pacifism and civil resistance. In the 21st century, flowers have also become symbols of revolutions. The Rose Revolution in Georgia, 2003. The Orange Revolution in Ukraine, 2004. Although not quite floral, but also color symbolic. The Jasmine Revolution in Tunisia, 2010, which was the start of the Arab Spring. Flowers in political images. Politicians often use flowers as part of their public image. For example, Margaret Thatcher often appeared with a carnation. Hillary Clinton wore floral elements in her outfits during important speeches. Women politicians in Italy and France specifically chose clothes with floral motifs to soften the perception of their authority. Green movements and flora as a political weapon. Floral motifs have become the visual core of numerous environmental movements. For example, green parties around the world choose daisies, sunflowers, and maple leaves as their official logos. This immediately communicates the ideas of life, purity, nature, and hope. Psychology of flowers in politics. Why do politicians use flowers at all? It's simple. They evoke an immediate emotional response, tenderness, trust, calmness. Unlike words, flowers work at the subconscious level, and politicians are well aware of this effect. It's like a visual hook, like a signal. I'm yours. I'm safe. I bring good. Even the toughest politician with a boutonniere seems less threatening. Contrasts. Flowers and dictators. However, not everyone uses flowers in the same way. Authoritarian leaders usually avoid floral symbolism. It seems too soft to them. For example, in North Korea, only Kimmersenia, a special kind of orchid named after Kim Il-sung. In the USSR, flowers were given for display, but it was a service aesthetic, not a personal feeling. Interestingly, despite the democratic system of the United States, Trump also uses floral symbols very carefully. He gravitates towards powerful images, gold, marble, flags, but not petals. Flowers are not just a decoration, they are a language. It is a code, and in politics, it works no worse than slogans or laws. Understanding this language allows us to better read the signals that leaders send us. Donald Trump, the image of a tough leader. The rhetoric of power. Donald Trump is a symbol of strength, confidence, and sometimes even arrogance. From the first day of his campaign in 2015, he set a tone that was strikingly different from all other candidates. His language was not about tenderness, empathy, or caring. It was about winning, breaking, and building a wall. Phrases like, "Make America great again," "You're fired," "We're going to win so much you may even get tired of winning," are a kind of political weapon that doesn't leave room for ... flowers. The aesthetics of solid gold. Let's take a look at Trump Tower, or the interiors of Trump International Hotel. It's all gold, marble, columns, statues. That is, the aesthetics of power and grandeur, not natural beauty or soft forms. There is no place for floristry in Trump's visual world. It is dominated by lines, rectangles, and cold textures. Even his signature long, aggressive, jagged looks like barbed wire, not like elegant writing. Public behavior. In speeches, Trump rarely smiles warmly. His facial expressions are mostly serious and dominant. If there is a smile, it is more like a sneer. He often has the corners of his mouth down and leans forward. When he speaks, a position of assertiveness, not openness. This is another signal that he is not a flowery person. Exceptions. Gifts for Melania. Nevertheless, there are mentions in the history of public statements that Trump gave flowers to his wife Melania. For example, in 2018, he admitted on CNN that he had given her a card and flowers for her birthday. But he justified it by saying that he had a very busy schedule. It looked more like an excuse than a romantic gesture. Moreover, he openly said, "You know, I am a very busy president, but at least I remembered." This emphasizes that flowers for him are an obligatory social action, not an act of sincere emotion. Political meetings and protocol. At the state level, giving flowers is part of diplomatic etiquette. But even here, Trump minimizes this ritual. At official meetings with leaders, he is rarely seen with bouquets in his hands. This is often the task of the First Lady or the protocol service. A good example is the meeting with Emmanuel Macron. The French leader presents symbolic gifts with elements of art, while Trump presents flags, medals, and books. No floristry at all. Image: a man without weaknesses. One of the reasons why Trump is not friends with flowers is his branded image. He appears as an alpha leader, a man of action, a businessman, a builder. Flowers are a language of hints, subtlety, and beauty, and his message is direct, rough, and decisive. Trump is creating himself as the antithesis of Obama, who, by the way, willingly gave flowers, visited gardens, and even filmed against the backdrop of flowering trees. For Trump, this is weakness, and weakness is political death in his style of play. Satire and memes. Flowers as parody. Interestingly, in online culture, flowers are often associated with Trump ... in a parodic way. For example, photo jokes depict him surrounded by flowers as an irony. Look how it doesn't fit his character. And this only increases the contrast between his real image and the symbolism of flowers. Donald Trump is not a flower politician. He's a fist politician. His image is a brand of strength, victory, business, and straightforwardness. Flowers are not organic here. They are either part of the protocol or irony, and it is in this contrast that the potential for storytelling lies, which we develop in this video. Personal stories with flowers and what they say about Trump. A flower confession on TV. In 2018, Donald Trump mentioned live on Fox and Friends that he had given Melania flowers and the card for her birthday. But instead of emphasizing the romance of the gesture, he emphasized that he was very busy. "Well, I gave her a very nice card, beautiful flowers, but I was very busy at the time." It sounds like a forced duty, not a personal initiative. This episode caused a lot of ridicule on social media and in journalistic comments. People wrote that even the toughest politicians can find time for personal things, except Trump. Inauguration and protocol bouquets. At Trump's 2017 inauguration ceremony, Melania wore an elegant light-colored suit and a huge bouquet of flowers next to her. But the media noticed Trump did not touch the flowers, did not shake hands with his wife, did not look at them at all. This gesture impressed not only observers, but also psychologists. They interpreted it as a symbol of emotional distance and a business approach to everything, even family events, birthdays without romance. Journalists have repeatedly noted that Melania Trump has almost never publicly displayed gifts from her husband. No photos with flowers, no touching posts. Even the white House pages did not publish pictures of the couple in an intimate or warm format. Everything looked like an official mission. This may indicate that even traditional romantic gestures are a formality for Trump, not an element of intimacy. Wedding floristry. Formal and cold. The wedding ceremony of Trump and Melania in 2005 was held with glamour and glitter. Of course, there were flowers, tens of thousands of dollars for floristry, white classics, luxurious installations. But it is noteworthy that all the flowers were chosen not on an emotional, but on an aesthetic basis: white, expensive, majestic. That is, here again, not about emotions, but about status. Flowers as a corporate attribute. During events at Trump Tower or Trump hotels, interior floral arrangements are often used, but their role is only decorative. Flowers are placed strategically in the foyer, near logos, on tables, but never as the main accent. This is business floristry, conscious, stylish, cold, nothing personal. And again, confirmation, Trump is not one of those who gives flowers because he feels like it. What biographers say about this? Biographers who have studied Trump's personality say that he is not a sentimental type. He is rational, controlling, and tends to evaluate everything by the criterion of benefit. If Trump gives flowers, it's either business or protocol, says Michael D'Antonio, author of The Truth About Trump. The psychoanalytic view. From a psychological point of view, the rejection of flowers as an emotional element is often inherent in people with low confidence in others. They perceive tenderness as a weakness, as something that can be manipulated. For such people, it is important to keep a distance, to be impenetrable. It's not about the lack of feelings, it's about the fear of showing them. Donald Trump's personal stories with flowers are stories of distance, formality, and public duty. They once again emphasize the main idea: flowers are not organic in his world. If they do appear, it is only because they are supposed to. Flower conflicts. How Trump has affected the global flower market. Flowers are not a trifle. Many people imagine flowers as something incidental: gifts, weddings, romance. But in reality, the flower business is a multi-billion-dollar industry involving hundreds of thousands of farmers, logistics companies, retailers, and florists. The United States is one of the largest consumers of cut flowers in the world. The main importers are Colombia, Ecuador, Kenya, and the Netherlands. Trump's policy, America First. As part of his America First slogan, Trump has launched a series of trade wars with China, the EU, Mexico, and other partners. His administration has imposed tariffs, renegotiated treaties, and blocked supply chains. The flower market, although not among the top strategic industries, was no exception. Tariffs and flower suppliers. In 2019, everything related to flower logistics came under the influence of increased duties: packaging, container transportation, materials for floristry. Import prices have risen. The result, an increase in retail prices for flowers in the US by 15 to 25%. Increased costs for florists on Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. Cancellation of some corporate orders due to budget constraints. Conflicts with Colombia. Colombia is the main supplier of roses and chrysanthemums to the United States. When the US began to revise the terms of trade under the CAFTA agreement, Colombian farmers began to sound the alarm. They claimed that they would lose their market, and tens of thousands of people would be out of work. The Colombian government was forced to make a diplomatic statement. Flower exports should not suffer due to general political conflicts. Holidays under attack. US florists actively protested. Letters to Congress stated that, "We cannot maintain traditions if flowers become a luxury. Mother's Day, graduations, weddings, everything is affected." Even large corporations that used to give flowers to employees began to cut budgets or replace flowers with e-cards. Economic effects. According to the American Florists Association, total sales of cut flowers in the US fell by 17% in 2020. The share of imported products decreased by 11%. At the same time, the local segment has grown. US farmers have begun to revive their home business. It's interesting, Trump's policy hit imports, but gave a boost to domestic flower production. Logistical problems. In 2020, during the pandemic, logistical barriers were added to tariff barriers, port congestion, increased air transportation costs, loss of up to 30% of the freshness of flowers during delays. Trump refused to reduce tariffs for this segment, although many companies requested a flower exception. How it affected the image. For many small entrepreneurs, including flower shop owners, Trump was associated with additional costs, headaches, and a decrease in customer traffic. And while his supporters saw it as a defense of American business, in reality, most flowers are not US competition, as local production covers only 20% of demand. Conclusion. The flower market is a small but illustrative victim of big politics. The story of how one person, when leading a country, can affect even the most delicate areas is revealing and profound. Donald Trump, without wanting to, has become the hero of the flower economic drama. Flowers as a symbol of protest, when petals turn into weapons, the power that does not kill. Flowers have always been associated with peace, life, and love, but it is these qualities that have made them a weapon of protest, a symbol that speaks louder than shouts, an image that evokes an apt contrast with weapons, power, and violence. A historical precedent. 1967, Washington, D.C. Anti-war demonstrators insert flowers into the muzzles of National Guard assault rifles. The photo of this moment went viral. Since then, the phrase flower power has become the slogan of the generation. It would seem that in the 21st century these images have already lost their relevance, but Trump changed everything. Women's marches, flowers against misogyny. In 2017, immediately after Trump's inauguration, the women's marches took place across America, the largest protests against the president at the start of his cadence. Among the posters were thousands of floral images. People carried them. Posters with feminist slogans decorated with peonies, roses, daisies. Huge installations in the form of blooming female symbols. Head wreaths in the style of a Ukrainian wreath as an act of female unity. Floral design in anti-systemic clothing on Etsy, Amazon, and Redbubble. There are thousands of products with floral prints and political slogans. Feminists are flowers too. F*CK Trump, with an elegant floral frame. Stickers, mugs, posters with stylized petals that slightly hide aggressive phrases. It's a kind of visual game. Tenderness versus cruelty. Flowers against hatred. And, paradoxically, thanks to this, Trump's image has become part of floral culture. Artistic interventions. American artists created a series of posters where Trump was depicted with a hairstyle of petals. His portraits were made of fresh flowers, with irony or anger. Flash mobs were organized. Plant a flower for anger, where plants with critical names were planted. Ego bush, Twitter tulip, etc. Flower satire in theater and cinema. Some theater productions parodying Trump use flowers as props. For example, a character with a bouquet of plastic roses as a symbol of false tenderness. The image of the Daisy King, a leader who pretends to be gentle but is ruthless inside. Even in the episodes of Saturday Night Live, floral motifs appeared as a subtle irony. TikTok, Instagram, memes. Generation Z is not standing aside either. Videos have appeared on TikTok where bloggers offer Trump flowers, and he rejects them. And at the same moment everything around him turns to black and white. Meme cycles like Trump, but make it floral, where his entire life is framed in the style of bucolic art. It's a new form of protest, visual, peaceful, aesthetic, but devastating in its own way. Trump has become the object of a new kind of protest, aesthetic, floral, ironic. Flowers, traditionally associated with tenderness, have become an instrument of cultural resistance, and this is a paradox that deserves a deeper understanding. Jennifer Flowers, a floral scandal. Who is Jennifer Flowers? Jennifer Flowers is an actress and singer who became the epicenter of the Bill Clinton sex scandal in the 1990s. She claimed to have had a 12-year affair with the then governor of Arkansas and even provided audio recordings of their conversations. Her name, of course, is symbolic. Flowers means flowers, and it was this fact that Trump later used in his style, ruthlessly, loudly, and very effectively. Trump's election campaign. In 2016, before the first round of debates with Hillary Clinton, Trump announced that he would invite Jennifer Flowers to the front row of the hall, right in front of Hillary. It was more than a provocation. It was a public disrespect, a psychological warfare in front of the whole of America. Irony and bouquet satire. The name Flowers became a playing card. Memes immediately appeared on social media. Trump will come to the debate with a bouquet of flowers. Photo frogs. Trump holding an armful of roses, with Jennifer's face instead of flowers. Slogan: Let's make America bloom again. This scandal was literally a flower scandal, and although it was a tough political move, it also had an aesthetic tone in Trump's characteristic style of hard irony. Political weapon in a floral wrapper. Flowers' invitation to the debates did not materialize, but the effect was achieved. Hillary had to publicly react, recall the past, and make excuses, and this threw her off balance. Trump, as a player, used not just a person, but a symbol loaded with emotional, gender, moral, and media weight. Femininity as a counter-weapon. The fact that a woman with a name like Flowers became part of a political battle did not go unnoticed in feminist circles. Many considered it an act of objectification of women, manipulation of public memory, an attempt to humiliate an opponent because of her husband's sexual past. In response, a movement emerged on the internet, Real Flowers, Real Power, where activists used bouquets and floristry as a symbol of women's dignity, symbolism, and the language of manipulation. Name Flowers in Trump's hands has become a symbol of humiliation through beauty. It is no coincidence that the flower, an image associated with tenderness, sensuality, and love, has become a means of domination. This is an example of how Trump skillfully plays on contradictions. He takes something beautiful and uses it as a nail. The story of Jennifer Flowers is not just a scandal. It is a tool of political theater, where floral symbolism has become part of a hard game. And Trump, as always, skillfully used people, words, and aesthetics to achieve the effect. Trump in art and pop culture. Flowers as a form of mockery and inspiration. Flowers in the president's portrait. The artist Tony Rubino has created a series of digital portraits, among which one stands out: President Donald J. Trump. Flowers, flower, floral. It's not just a play of colors, it's a Baroque protest. The portrait shows Trump's face decorated with flowers in the style of a classical still life, peonies, roses, orchids, and all this color frames the stern, hostile expression on his face. This art says, look how soft nature is, and how unnatural it looks next to rudeness. Murals, installations, street art. In New York, Portland, Berlin, and even Tbilisi, artists have created large floral murals of Trump, often as an allegory for false softness, drowning out anger with aesthetics, or vice versa. Beauty as resistance. For example, in one Berlin project, flowers literally sprouted from Trump's eyes, covering his mouth as a visual message. Be quiet, you can't hear nature. Designing clothes and stickers. There are thousands of products on Etsy and Redbubble with Trump's image on them, in a flower wreath, in a bouquet with the inscription "No thanks," as a god of flowers with a sarcastic overtone. It is a mass culture of protest that does not use rudeness directly, but hints clearly. Beauty and peace are more important than domination. Performances and theater scenes. In the theatrical space, flowers often become a tool for mocking cruelty. In one of the performances in Brooklyn, Trump goes on stage as a narcissist politician who, handing flowers to every voter, but then it turns out that they are plastic buds with thorns. The audience explodes. It's an image of fake tenderness that causes a sting. Music and video art. Some clips, especially from the independent scene YouTube, Vimeo, depict Trump in flower mazes where he finds no way out, or where each of his speeches turns into a floral installation. that disintegrates when he lies. This is visual criticism wrapped in beauty. Why do flowers work? They are an emotional contrast to Trump. They are understandable to everyone. No explanation is needed. They create an aesthetic dissonance that amplifies the message. Trump is rude, straightforward, sober. Flowers are delicate, soft, natural. This contrast strikes to the heart. Conclusion: flowers in Trump art are a silent revolution. It is a gentle force that does not destroy, but redefines rudeness. And this aesthetic works because it speaks the language of the heart, not just the mind. Is reconciliation between Trump and flowers possible? What if, imagine, the camera is slowly approaching the Mar-a-Lago residence. Donald Trump, no longer the president, but an ordinary private citizen, is sitting in the garden. He's holding ... a tulip. No journalists, no crowd, no slogans. He's just silent and watching. Does it sound fantastic? Perhaps, but this scene raises the question: is a tough leader really unable to change? A psychological perspective. According to the psychology of personal transformation, even the hardest characters can change in the face of loss of control, recognition of mistakes, age, or ... beauty. Flowers are the perfect trigger. They remind us of a moment, not eternity. They bloom and fade like power. They seek nothing, but bring everything. Symbolism of transformation. In Eastern culture, the lotus flower is a symbol of enlightenment. It grows from mud, but remains pure. Now imagine Trump, who, without even changing his rhetoric, suddenly starts using floral metaphors. America must blossom like a sokolar. Every citizen is like a bud that has a chance at the sun. Does it sound unrealistic? Or maybe just unusual? An alternative speech. I learned to win, to build, to break. But now I want to learn how to nurture. I have never believed that beauty has power, but I've seen it stop wars, at least in hearts. And I want America to become not only great, but also tender again. This is not a quote. It is an imaginary speech, but it shows how meaningful such a term would be. A symbolic shot. Imagine the end of a documentary. Trump walking past a flower bed in Washington, D.C. He stops. He suddenly bends down and plants a flower. There is silence. A cutaway of protests, the economy, families, polarization, and in the background, the stem grows in an accelerated mode. A symbol, yes. Idealism, perhaps. But every great narrative has a chance for rebirth. Is he ready? The real Trump is unlikely to plant a flower. His internal code is constancy, control, domination. But even if he doesn't plant it literally, he may have already planted it symbolically in our imagination. This means that the influence of flowers is stronger than it seemed at first. Conclusion. So, flowers in the history of Donald Trump, they were a gift, became a tool of protest, turned into irony, but they can become a symbol of renewal. Not all flowers grow in the garden. Some are in history, some in art, and some in the most unexpected hearts.